Hello and welcome to another edition of Tudor Talks Inside Woo. I'm Gabe Tudor, proud superintendent at Wooster City Schools. Really excited to talk with you today about curriculum instruction and really dive into our report card and some of the strategies of intervention that we use. And so today's special guest is Mrs. Molly Richard, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Thank you for being here today.
I'm happy to be here.
Before we get started in kind of the topics, Molly, tell us a little bit about your previous experience and what you kind of do in this role.
Sure. This is my 12th year in the district, and I have had the privilege of being able to work at Cornerstone, Keene, and Melrose as either an assistant principal, a covering principal, or a principal. But originally I started as a preschool teacher here, so I was able to have 2 years in preschool, and my first class is now a sophomore in high school. So
wow,
all sophomores.
Very good. So a lot of elementary experience, but then in the last few years you've been in this role, which has really helped you learn a little bit more about the secondary as well, right?
All the things secondary and also at Edgewood as well. So
yes, very good. Well, thanks for being with us today. I think what we'll start out with, and I don't want to spend the entire time today on the report card, but it is a good measure for us to talk about, and we have some things to celebrate. So. Before we talk about our specific report card, Ms. Richard, tell us just a little bit about the components of the report card and how those are configured.
Sure. So there are 6 components that make up the report card for every district in the state of Ohio. And each of those components have a different percentage that goes into the final score. This year specifically, it changed a little bit. The percentages moved because we incorporated college, career, military, readiness, and workforce.
That was prepared for success component?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
So that weight was a part of our components this year, and so it's the first time that was weighted. We actually did pretty well, and we're looking forward to our score for next year's too.
So that measure really is all of the things that mostly our high school students are
Correct.
doing to kind of prepare for their next step of college, career, enlistment, right?
It's what we're doing to make sure that they're ready for the next step. So as they move on to whatever area they're going into, are they ready for that? And there are multiple different ways that they can meet that component that we offer. And many students meet multiple, and then we have some that we're working hard to meet just one, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then graduation rate's pretty self-explanatory. The prepared for success and graduation rate of the 6 components, they're the 2 that are what we would call a year in the rear, correct?
Yes.
And what we mean by that is actually next year's report card will have the results from the previous year, where the other 4 components come from that actual year, right? So we actually know our graduation rate and prepared for success score for next year, and excited that they're both higher than they were this year, which we were already in those categories. We had a 4 in graduation and a 3 prepared for success, and we're going to move to a 5.
5 for graduation and a 4 for prepared.
Yeah, and again, this 5 stars is the max on that. So excited about that. So the other 4 components are the ones that are truly kind of the testing component, and they go on the report card for the year that the tests are taken, right? So when I hear achievement versus progress versus gap closing, tell me the difference, because it's the same test, it's the same score, but tell me how those different numbers are configured.
Sure. So the achievement component is how well students do on the current state test, so that test that they take that school year. So do they score proficient? It goes basic, limited, proficient, all the way up to advanced plus.
So that's a pretty raw score. It's basically that score just in the end creates the achievement score.
The number of students that we have in each of those areas gives us a score. So there's a certain amount of points that go into if you score basic versus if you score advanced plus.
Yeah, okay, very good. And then, so moving on to progress, how's progress different from that?
Progress measures how a student grows from the end of one year to the next year. So are they basically, what we want is all students to make 1 lap around the track. So we want them to have 1 year's worth of growth, and that's measuring that. So we use value added for that component, and our teachers are working hard at digging into that and taking a look at how that affects the state scores.
Gotcha. And so when we say value added, what that really is the state is looking at the score from that exact student the year before, and then how that improvement is. So that's where, if you're like, well, how does a district maybe get a 3 in achievement and a 5 in progress? or vice versa. It really depends on achievement is just that raw score, while progress is actually the improvement shown.
Improvement, right. And we want them to continue to grow and improve each year.
Now, gap closing. What is gap closing?
Gap closing is how specific subgroups do on the test, and how we're doing it, meeting the needs of all students. So we're looking at students with disabilities or our multilingual students, and are they meeting the state scores that we want.
Gotcha. And the state is big on those subgroups because, even though it's still part of the progress and achievement, they want to see those subgroups growing.
That's correct.
And which one have I forgotten? I know I forgot one.
K-3 literacy.
K-3 literacy. Tell us about that one.
So the K-3 literacy component takes a look at 3 things, but it looks at how many students move on to 4th grade, and then it looks at our the students that are, basically we're looking at students that are on a reading improvement and monitoring plan.
Mm-hmm.
So are they, and it looks from year to year, so are they staying on one? Do they come on one starting in kindergarten? Do they go off and on one? All of those factor into that component.
And that's a fairly newer component as well, right? Or at least there's been a lot of changes.
There's been a lot of changes. It's not necessarily new, but there's a lot of changes. We also now have to do we're required to do different screening for our students. We've always had to do a reading assessment or diagnostic, but the requirements have changed, and what we're actually using as that test has changed as well.
Yeah. So that's kind of what the report card is. We've talked a little bit about our current report card with at least next year with graduation, Prepared for Success. But this year that we just received our report card about a month ago, kind of go through the highlights a little bit there.
Happy to do that. The big highlight is that overall we're 4 stars. So 3 is what the state is shooting for, and anything above that is really awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm super proud of the work of our students and staff, and everyone, administrators as well. So we are 4 stars in overall. So then, but each component has its own star rating. Mm-hmm. So this year overall for district, we're 3 stars for the achievement. So again, that's how well they did on the state tests. This is an increase, and I think it's important to note that we're one of the few districts, that actually did have an increase this year. A lot stayed the same or went down. Small increase, but we'll take it.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. The progress component, we're 4 stars, which is great.
It's that growth measure.
It's that growth measure. So and the biggest thing to know about progress also is it also impacts gap closing and achievement. So it's a pretty big component on the report card. So it's based on their growth from their past performance. So 4-star this year. I think we spent, as I said, a lot of time looking into our EVAS training and stat chats and things like that. So we're really working with teachers to determine how are they doing and how can we continue to grow our students.
Yeah.
So gap closing, which was pretty exciting, as we said, is 5 stars.
Yeah.
And I think we're always trying to continue to grow in that area. We want all students to meet their growth potential, and so Diana McMillan and I continue to meet and talk about our students with disabilities and how we can close that gap even more. So 5 stars is pretty exciting.
It's great. Very exciting about that.
It is. So early literacy would be the next one, so we're 3 stars. That's an area that, as we kind of said, it's ever changing, and it's also the requirements change. So there's a lot that go into that. We did increase. We're improving every year, which I think is important to note. We went from 37.6 last year to 44%. Some of the things that we've taken a look at are when do we screen our students. So in the past, we've screened our kindergarten students in the first 3 days, kind of that staggered start time. So we thought, it's a smaller group, and just kind of get it done, because you have to do it within the first 20 days that a kindergarten student is there. So we moved that to after they've kind of built a relationship with their kindergarten teachers and the staff that are working with them, and we did already see an improvement because we know who will be on a RIMP and not. So it went from 56.5% of students in kindergarten on a RIMP to 31%. So that's a good number.
Yeah. And then we talked about graduation rate and Prepared for Success. And again, that overall made us 4 stars, which we're really excited about. The thing at the same time that we talked about for many years, and we talked about with our staff and our students, we want to do well on the state test, and we do, because it is a measure that people can see, and it shows our product of instruction. At the same time, it is not the end-all measure for us. There are a lot of things that define success. There are a lot of things that define student success and a well-rounded student, and it really is just a snapshot. But it is data we can use every year, and we do want to respond to that data. So I guess that would be my follow-up question is, after we saw how we did this year and looking at the data, what's next for us?
So I think, yes, what you said is important. I mean, the state tests are important to us, but it's one day in a child's life too. A lot of times, you're taking a test over 1 or 2 days. Lots of things happen in those days, so it doesn't always equal their exact level of reading or what they're able to do in the classroom, what their teachers are seeing. But it is important, so we are putting some different. We're trying to figure out different ways to improve those scores. So our teachers have obviously done a lot of work, so they're digging into what I call the stat chats, or looking at which areas they're growing students in and which areas they need to continue to improve in. Another thing that we've incorporated, and it's not our first year, we've had these for quite a few years, but we call them data days, where we have a big team of teachers and staff members that meet and review the data 3 times a year to look at students and how they're continuing to grow. So we take that data and look to see exactly what areas of need they have, and then readjust their intervention groups. That I think has been really successful in the last couple of years to provide some additional supports for our students, but also be really intentional on what we're doing for each child. So, for example, if the child is, having trouble with comprehension, but we continue to only work on phonics, we would never, you want to work on the areas that they need. So that has expanded into Edgewood and is moving up even into the high school. So I think that those are intentional days and work that have, has really helped our teachers also understand, okay, I need to build a small group for this reason, and then we'll continue to work with that. We also have looked a lot at the release test questions, so they have something called assessment authoring, but also some different components in the website from Ohio. ODO, I guess is what they would call it, but they have released test questions, so we purposely have added those in over the school year in the 3rd and 4th grade classroom, so they're looking at how tests or questions are worded. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it doesn't match the resources that we use in the curriculum, or it's certainly not going to match what they're reading in a read aloud with a teacher or a book. So just showing them that different words can be tricky, or that there's a 2-part question, so you need to make sure you answer both questions in that. That I think has been helpful for our students. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're doing it on purpose to make it tricky, but it is just in a way that our students aren't always exposed to.
Yeah.
So I think that's super helpful. We've also been really intentional in our scope and sequence and common assessment days. So we've allowed our teachers to have some common planning days where they're really working on making sure that their scope and sequence, so kind of what their plans are for the year, not only match the other teachers in the same grade level, but also that they are adding in their release test questions or adding in specific work with vocabulary or comprehension, some fluency. So I think that has been helpful, especially with new curriculum, because we have some new curriculum, especially K-5, that's been a lot of work this year, but they're also working on common assessments so that they can, really dig into how are the students doing, what areas do we need to continue to support them in. So I think that's been helpful. I also think we've added the data days for intervention specialists. So that's been a new thing led by Brittany Grimshaw. She's really worked with them to dig into to the students that are on their caseloads, and then do the same thing that our students, all students are doing. So we're looking at what interventions do they need and what's going to help them continue to close that gap. So I think those are some pretty intentional things that we've been working on, and we'll continue to hopefully see some growth.
What I love about when I hear that is we talk a lot about informed instruction, right? And that's really basically using information to decide how we instruct and work with students. And throughout what you just said, that's happening, right? Between looking into the data, the curriculum, the teams, the coaching, all of that is, I think one of the things as a parent I would want to know is there is a why behind what is happening in that classroom, right? And what is being taught and how it's being taught. And it's those pieces of information that are doing that. Another kind of thing, you mentioned it a little bit, talking about some other curriculums, but it's all a part of this process, and it's really went well here for us the last few years. Every year we usually have some level of curriculum adoption and we do a very thorough process of that, and you mentioned as well, probably most specifically our K-5 ELA and math adoption in the past couple of years, aligning with the science of reading and the new kind of math regulations has, I think, been very helpful. But it's a two-part process, right? It's evaluating the curriculum, which we do very well to make sure that we make the right decisions, but then it's also empowering our teachers and providing the information they need so that they can do that well.
Correct. And with that power, empowering them comes in time to actually look and dig into the curriculum and make a plan. So, when you incorporate new curriculum, it can be extremely overwhelming for our teachers and students because it's new. It's all, the way that it's presented, the way that it's worded, the way that even, if it's a workbook or, some type of resource. So they have to learn all of that brand new every year that we do a curriculum adoption. And for our K-5, they got to do 2 at once right now. So we're in Eureka Math Squared, and they also have HMH and 2 reading. But we do have a plan, and I think, it's been working well. And I think that's pre-K through 12 because our preschool also has a new creative curriculum we had to choose one that was state offered as well. So we do take a look at all those and offer those days. I think it's important that we have the coaching staff, our literacy and math coaches that are part of those scope and sequence days too. So there's a lot of people and work that goes into each of those days that really contributes to the success.
Yeah, and that goes back to obviously we want our teachers to be in the classroom, but when we do pull out a group of teachers, these are the kind of things that they're doing, and obviously that has exponential impact as well. So kind of lastly here before we close up here is, the other thing that I think we do in all departments, but definitely in our curriculum instruction, is also looking for additional opportunities for training, funding for training, and even resources and staff. You and your team were successful in getting the comprehensive literacy grant from the state of Ohio. That was a very competitive grant that we'll be able to use over a period of 5 years, and it's just a little under $1 million.
About $800,000.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what kind of things that grant's going to allow us to do.
So with the grant, we applied to support 5 what they would call sites, so each of the elementary schools, and then also Edgewood. Each site has their own budget and plan and amount of money that goes into that, but overall we're able to support the scope and sequence days that I'm talking about. So when we have those days, we have to pay for subs, so that's a part of it. So that work is there. Professional development is also a part of that, so we are able to already provide some from H&H at the beginning of the school year, and we'll continue to look for those opportunities throughout the 5-year plan. We also were able to add, part of Amber Yacaprero, her salary for the middle school is there, pay for out of that, and she'll continue to.
Because that was an added reading teacher. We added a reading teacher to the middle school, so.
We can't use it to purchase any items that would be state mandated curriculum, but we can do supplemental pieces to that. So additional books, or we use Orton Gillingham's morphology, or IMSE's morphology program, and you can use it to buy like the whiteboards and the supplies that you need for that for the students to continue to grow and learn. So we use that. We will use it for that as well. And then professional development. So not only for our teachers, but also for our administrators and coaches. So there's multiple opportunities throughout the school year that we have to attend different PDs, which it's been good. It's been good for our team to be together and keep the administrators on the same page, then the same conversations are being had in each of the buildings. So I think that helps kind of stay aligned.
Yeah, that alignment is so important, and really I think we'll really appreciate you sharing a little. And I hope what the audience gets out of this is how much goes in to the decisions that are made in terms of what's taught, how it's taught, and how it's evaluated, and that it's a constant process that we're always trying to improve. You talk about a continuous improvement. Instruction is continuous improvement. It never stops in that way. And we are really excited about kind of where we are and where we're going. I feel like we're in a really good place in terms of instruction. Always have room to improve. That's that continuous improvement. But I'm really excited about where we are, and we're really thankful of the report card we got. And again, lots of people contributed to that. From getting the kids to school safely, treating them with kindness, and then our teachers and our paras and our administrators, and just really proud of all of the efforts that we've done. And I would encourage, if you ever have questions about curriculum instruction, Molly's office is happy to answer those. Every year we pretty much have something that we adopt. Social studies is kind of at the forefront right now, as it's on a cycle of 5 to 6 years that we try to operate that in. So ask questions if you have them. Thanks so much for being with us today and spending a little time to learn a little bit more about our curriculum instruction here in our district. Have a great day.